In this episode of View from the Top, I've got Kelli Williams, who is an entrepreneur. She's been a nonprofit leader, soon to be author. She's a consultant. And so she's seen a lot. She's been through a lot in her life, in her journey, that she's sharing more and more of, right? As she kind of heals the wounds. And she's a great storyteller. And she shares some of those stories with us. And I think the main themes that I took out of this conversation are kind of redefining success through joy. And even in the hard times, even in the suffering and the times when it feels like things are never gonna, not going your way, are there moments of joy that you can find? There are. And it's sometimes we need to be reminded of that. And, she said multiple times through the podcast of, it will be okay. How do you find joy in the journey? And I know it feels like a Hallmark card and it's really easy for us to say, yeah, but it's hard. But at the same time, we have a choice. And so we're going to talk about choice today. How are you making those choices? And where do you need to be making different choices in the climb to keep you going, to keep your energy going in those hard moments? So I can't wait for you to hear Kelli and all of her advice in View from the Top. Welcome to the View from the Top podcast. Today we're going to talk about a lot of amazing things. And you got a little synopsis about Kelli, but when I have sisters, dear friends on, it's just a joy for me. So this is just us spending time together, and Kelli, everyone else just gets to listen in. Love it. Because this is how we show up. Everything you're going to share here is things that we would share if we were like sitting around. In fact, I had to say, okay, stop. We have to start the podcast because there was so much good that we were talking about. And I'm like, they need to hear this. We need to let other people hear this. So Kelli Williams, you are a force. You are a giver. You are someone in my life. We just keep saying there's big things we're supposed to be doing, and we're just going to keep being in each other's orbit until we figure it out. But we're both doing big things on our own. So will you share just a little bit about who you are, what you've done, what you're doing today? Just give us the Cliff Notes version of Kelli.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. I'm Kelli Williams. I am a healing-informed executive coach. I am a business and marketing strategist, and I also am the storyteller. And so when I think about storytelling, that's really sharing my stories and sharing stories of powerful people, usually women. I have a slight bias that way, to motivate and inspire the next generation. And so that comes to life as an adjunct professor. It comes to life for me on stages and in workshops, but also I'm working on my first book, which is a love letter to the next generation of women in business.
So beautiful. And I want to set this up because we had this quick conversation before we started recording on this idea. And I just read last night, this idea of, when we talk about the climb and we talk about, right, the obstacles, and it's a grind. It's tough at times, right? We go through those moments, and you go from suffering to wisdom to service is what the book said, right? And that idea of you have to go through suffering to build wisdom. And once you've processed the wisdom, meaning you really understand your own story, then you can be of service. And I think that's what you're talking about through all of your mechanisms. You're being of service to others by vulnerably sharing your story as a storyteller.
Yeah. I love having it said that way. I don't think I've ever been able to articulate it that way, but that's exactly right. It's creating those connections of my story may not be your story, but having the clear understanding that someone else has a journey, has had trials and tribulations, and has been able to accomplish or had setbacks and continue to move forward. Right. That's the moving from wisdom into service, is sharing those experiences.
And I don't think enough of us as leaders do that, which it's the whole purpose of the podcast, is because I think when people can hear, right, they can see the Kelli Williams or the Jamie Tates on social media and awards, and right, it's great. But if they don't know everything else that we've overcome or that we've faced, or it's hard for them to stay inspired to do their own thing, right? To keep climbing the mountains. So Kelli, I want you to share, I think it's really easy to see the highlight reel the awards and the things and the stages and the, everything that looks really glamorous. What's something that people wouldn't know about your journey that they'd be like, wow, like she's been through hard stuff too, or like, that maybe isn't out there as much?
Yeah. Something that I have realized as I've been in this process of writing ebook is I've always thought of myself as an open book. I always think of myself as a person that shares all of my stories. And this process that I've gone through with my writing coach has had me unpacking stories for myself that I think I had pushed down. I talk a lot about, and what's out there and people know about me is I was a teenage mom, and that was hard. I tell the story of being laid off when I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter and what I learned through that process. I've told stories of being a global chief marketing officer and having my boss swear at me and resigning the next day. But what I haven't really shared is I'm a domestic abuse survivor. And that has impacted who I am, how I show up, and who I trust and who I don't. It's very much the fight, flight, or freeze mentality that's always with me.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. And because I think that's going to help someone else that's in it or is also healing from that so much. I just had this conversation this weekend. I was on a girls' weekend with a couple of ladies, and we were talking about this, like, when you actually do the work, meaning whatever the work is, it can be therapy, it can be something else. Like when you do the work, you start to see themes that were totally disconnected in how you show up. And you couldn't always drill them back to a trauma, right? Or to something that you survived. But yet that suffering created, good and bad, created coping mechanisms in you. And I think even you just being honest is even making me think and pause and go, like, I always tell people I'm an open book. Ask me anything. I'll share about my divorce or this or that. Like, I don't have a lot that I'm ashamed of. I have things that, maybe it would be easier if it didn't happen. But how open are we actually? Like, right? We think we're open until you start to do the work.
Until you start to do the work. And until you realize that, for me, the understanding has come through the reality of I have a lot of people that are, if you were to take and put your friends into sort of tiers of friendships, right? I have a lot of people that are very close to me. Maybe not my core friends, but very close to me, know me well. I know them well, and would be shocked to know that I'm a domestic abuse survivor, or that, that my senior year of college, I had to petition the school to allow me to graduate because I didn't finish my foreign language requirement because I was in constant court with my ex over my son. And I just couldn't finish that class. And I didn't want to go to school for another semester. I mean, just these micro things that have taught me a lot over the years, right? How to advocate for myself, how to stand up to authority, how to make a really solid business case, and how to still do the work. Because what I did was I went back and I still felt like I cheated. And so I still went back and took that class after I graduated.
I love, because it was for you. It wasn't for somebody else. It wasn't about it in the box. So you've mentioned a few things, but I talk about on this podcast, the climb moment, that moment where you're like, everything looked great from the outside. I was climbing the mountain of success, doing all the things, but on the inside, things didn't feel right. Do you remember a moment or moments when it felt like that?
There are so many moments like that. And I think, one, we have to normalize admitting it, right? And two, it's not all of them have to be significant moments, right? One that comes to mind for me for sure was about this time last year. This time last year, I was leading a nonprofit, and we had a program that was focused on bringing young, diverse high school students into marketing and advertising. And one of our school partners advertised the program on our behalf. They didn't represent the program in our language. They didn't misrepresent it. And that turned into very quickly a lawsuit that named our organization, the school district, and a partner. It also moved into very quickly a lot of news, turned into national news, which then sparked hate mail coming to the nonprofit, hate mail and threats of violence addressed to me as an individual. And a lot of work that went into then quickly making adjustments within the nonprofit to ensure longevity and sustainability. What you would have seen on the outside was, this is hard. I'll figure it out. A big smile on my face, rallying the team. It's going to be okay. But the truth is, I was breaking. I had never been so frightened for myself, frightened for my family, frightened for this organization that I loved, right? The amount of time that I spent future-proofing and protecting the organization. On the back end, we put in another security system at our house. I took all of my socials and stripped my kids and made sure everything was private and tested and changed things to protect my family. I had never had a time in which I was that terrified, while on the outside, big smile, showing up, absolutely it's going to be okay, rallying everyone. It wasn't okay for me.
Right. So you've gotten through it. So I believe you can only inspire or share from a healed wound, right? It can be open. What got you through that? Or what was your mindset that you had to take to be resilient in the face of that?
I think that's just it. It was the fact that I was being strong. I wasn't being resilient in the moment.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, I wasn't able to heal that wound or move forward until I truly learned resilience. A good friend of mine and I have joked so many times about the fact that the universe will teach you the same role, the same lesson over and over and over and over until you finally learn it. I hadn't learned that resilience lesson in that time, but did shortly thereafter. I actually had an opportunity to go to an amazing conference, and I heard from a speaker who talked about giving ourselves permission. And when I heard the name of the session, I was like, I'm an adult. I lead my own life. I don't need anyone to give me permission.
No, I run the show and most of my
right? Like, for sure, I've got this. But I walked into that session, and that was when I learned resilience. I learned I didn't need someone else to give me permission to pause, to rest, to be okay, or to say, I'm not okay, which also is strength and resilience in and of itself. And so it was the unpacking that took place at that conference with strangers, which has also been an eye-opener for me of, I'm much more confident and comfortable sharing the scary thing and saying the hard things out loud when it's people I don't know well.
Yeah. Ditto. Me too. It's safer because, maybe there's less judgment, or I'm just not worried about the judgment in the same way. Mm-hmm. And what is that? That's a whole other thing to unpack, right? I mean, it's just like, how do you, heal that? But I love this idea of, because there's so many leaders, and hopefully those that are listening, where we feel like it's like I've got to just get to resilience. And I don't think you're ever done building that, because the moment you think you got it, something's going to come out of, left field and knock you off course again. And so what is that, right? Or what have you done to just almost start to figure out how to curate that resilience, even in the face of new things that are coming at you?
For me, one of the things that I did was I got a trauma-informed coaching certification, because I wanted to learn for myself how to work through my trauma, right? And I use the word trauma, and trauma sounds like a really big word,
right?
But trauma is anything that has negatively impacted us that we need to think about and get through, right? And those trauma responses of fight or flight or freeze are responses that are tied to previous traumas as well. Because again, the universe will teach us the same thing until we finally learn that lesson. And so if my trauma response is to freeze, which it is, I can go back and tell you probably 50 instances in which I froze over the years. And so the work of understanding how do I move through my natural response is the healing, is the place of resilience.
Yeah, I love it. I'm an avoider. I don't know if that's an actual category, but I just like avoid and it's going to go away that way. So not healthy either.
Also freeze.
Oh, is that a category of freezing? I'm a bad must be.
Yep.
Okay, good to know.
Yep. Both are avoiders.
As you go through this, and some of the hardest points as you think about in your story, there's an identity piece that goes along with that I've experienced, that your identity has to shift. You are different. You're a different person because you're growing. Mm-hmm. And so many of us struggle in that in between of everyone used to know me as this, and now I'm this. What has helped you kind of build, through those shifting identities? Because I think we need to shift, but oftentimes leaders are scared to let go.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think that that's the exact reason in which it's easier to share stories and to share full truths with people we don't know, because they don't know that history. They don't know us as this other version of ourselves. And not because we're, fully shedding and changing, but we do shed layers, right? For a long time, I've talked about the masks that I put on early in my career, early in my life, to show up as a certain way. And what I realize is, one, there's still masks that I still need to continue to take off. The smiling when I'm not okay mask is one I need to take off, right? But there's also other shedding that has to happen, right? The identity of being a teenage mom is still one I carry today.
Right.
And to really take that off and to continue to shift into, I haven't been a teenage mom because I haven't been a teenager in,
a while,
30-ish years.
A while.
Is an identity that I have to continue to evolve from, right? The identity of being a nonprofit leader is one I have to evolve from, as I'm no longer a nonprofit leader, right? I do very different work. There's all of these different identities, some personal, some professional, but all of our identities make up who we are, right? And how we show up in the world and how we show up authentically as the version of ourselves we are today.
Yeah.
But how am I doing it?
Not perfectly like me.
Not perfectly, funny enough.
Mm-hmm. My coach actually gave me that advice, just even as my identity as a founder and a business owner changes, right? My team is doing so much more and I'm stepping aside and I'm great with it. But at the same time, I'm like, who am I then? Yes. If I'm not that? Yeah. Because that's what everyone knew me as. And that's and what she said is, you'll always be a founder. Even when you don't own the business anymore, you still get to be a founder, right? Or you still get to be. So it was like, oh yeah. Like I don't have to just get rid of it because the circumstances change, but I also don't have to have it be the present forward, the way I show up if it's no longer the one I want to project.
That's exactly right.
So, but it's hard. It's very different. What is one belief or mindset that you've had to unlearn? Right? Or, maybe, and we both have talked about in the past, you're handed some beliefs when you grow up in the Midwest and the way you grow up, right? Or, out of love. But is there anything you had to shift or unlearn to become and kind of be on this path that you're on now?
Absolutely. I grew up in a house of guilt, and not on purpose. It was just sort of innate, inherent in our family and in our extended family, this belief of, if you didn't do something perfectly, you should feel guilty. If you can't do something, right, because I can't actually physically be in two places at the same time, I should feel guilty about the thing that I can't do. And I should apologize about it until you feel okay about me letting you down because I feel guilty. And the amount of guilt that I have carried throughout my life and desire to never let anyone down and to apologize almost before being is something that I've had to learn to shed.
Yeah. And so selfish was my word of 2025. I'm actually continuing it into 2026 because 2025 threw me some curveballs. I didn't work on it quite as much as I would like to. But it's because of, I wanted to redefine my relationship with that word. Because it's true. Like, I grew up in a people pleaser, like we want everybody to be happy and to agree and I've operated, and it's exhausting at this point to operate in that way, because there's no one, I mean, look at our world. No one's ever going to agree exactly or think that we are, you're right, doing the right things all the time. And so we're subscribed to something that doesn't exist.
Correct.
That idea of perfection. How do you describe, or how would you say what success is now versus then? And then can be anytime along, like, how do you define success now at this point?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I think it's one that we should ask ourselves regularly, right? Success when I was younger was a certain dollar amount. Success was a certain level or job title. Success for me, sort of in the middle of the last 30 years, has looked more like success in my ability to juggle a whole bunch of things and do them well, to be the best multitasker I possibly could, to, successfully lead the parent-teacher organization and successfully have a job that's, really, really moving the needle and making an impact, and successfully showing up for all of the people in my life. And the list went on from a multi-task perspective. I will say now, success to me looks like happiness. Success to me looks like joy. And it's following the joy and doing the things that bring me joy and interest. It's also about bringing joy into other people's lives. I think one of my greatest superpowers is being a strong connector and creating real connections between people, and being able to say, oh, I think you would benefit from this, and I happen to have the opportunity to make those connections. That brings me more joy than many things do. And so being able to put joy into the world is how joy comes back to me, and that is success.
I love it. I'm reading this book called The Second Mountain. And again, it's about kind of this, some of the science actually between first half of our adult lives and the second half of our adult lives. And he talks about the first mountain being about challenge and conquering, right? How many boxes can I check? How far can I go, right? What can I achieve? All those things. And there's nothing wrong with that, except for we get up to the top of that mountain and we're like, that's no longer what I want. And that's where so many of us struggle. It's like, well, now what do I want? Exactly. And he talked about the second mountain being about surrender and legacy. Like, really, like, what matters to me? And so the presence, right? And being in it, because I spent so many years just like conquering. And that word is like really interesting, right? And how do you soften that, right? Have that second mountain feel softer based on those words, but it doesn't mean it's any less driven.
Absolutely. And it also feels like it's tied back to that resilience conversation of just being really strong and getting through, versus the resilience of knowing resilience can be being softer. Yeah. Resilience also can be understanding when I'm tired and actually this isn't my fight any longer. This isn't my work any longer, or I just need a rest from it and then I'm ready to come back, but not pushing through when you're tired, literally or figuratively.
And that is something none of us have as leaders, everyone taught. There's no playbook for that, right? For managing your own energy. What do you do during these climbs, right? During these maybe top parts, what do you do to maintain physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, like all of those? What are some of your habits?
Yeah. I would say a few. One, I really, really love to take 5 minutes. When I feel overwhelmed by something I'm working on, or I'll send a message and say I'm going to be 5 minutes late, and I'll just go and walk. If I'm working from home like I am today, I'll walk around my house. If it's nice outside, I'll walk around the block. If I'm in an office, I'll walk around. I just take 5 minutes to have a movement break, right? The story I shared about the situation a year ago, I was clocking about 1,000 steps a day on my Apple Watch because I wasn't moving. I was so into fixing everything, figuring everything out. I was so stressed, and I just needed to get up and move my body, which also was a way of reinforcing back to my body, that I was okay and it would be okay. Whereas when I was locked in and I was tense, I was letting my body know that we were in a place where we needed to figure out if we were going to fight, flight, or freeze.
Yes.
So that's been a big one. I also have a morning mantra that I read to myself every morning just to get myself moving. I read this mantra to myself and then I do a personal check-in. How am I feeling? And it's a literal like, how am I feeling? How do I feel emotionally? How's my body feeling, right? I'm a little closer to middle age. And so like, does my hip feel good today? Does it not, right? Like seriously, how am I feeling? Do I feel any tension that I need to breathe into? So that check-in with myself. And none of these are long things that I do, right? A 5-minute walk, a morning check-in that takes me 5 minutes. I also do breathing exercises. I'll do a quick, where I'll breathe in and then I'll tighten myself and then I let it go. And I'll do that 2 or 3 times. And that has been incredible for me.
Yeah. And it's different for all of us, right? But finding those tips or tricks or things that just literally help you manage your neurological system, right? And that fight or flight. Because as leaders, a lot of us, if you don't have those tools, are showing up frazzled, right? That's the energy we're bringing to the work after and being okay with saying, one thing I've really realized is, they talk about like productivity and different people have different times of the day, right? Some people are really productive at night. Some are in the morning. Mine is 8 to 11. If I want to do anything creative, thinking, anything, right, that needs energy, it's in the morning.
Yeah.
It's harder for me to do the really heavy thinking or brainstorming or visioning in an afternoon. And so about 2:00, I'm like, okay, nothing really major. I can do admin stuff. It works, right? And then I usually get a little bit of between 7 and 9 some nights. If I'm not too tired, I get a little bit of a burst. And every now and then I'll feel like Saturday mornings are a big one for me. I'll tend to get a little bit of a burst of creativity on Saturday mornings. And so I've just stopped apologizing for the fact that I'm like, no meetings after 4 because I am worthless after 4:00.
Yes.
And it's, and at first I was like, God, it just feels lazy. Like I should do more work. Like, no, I'm not doing good work anyway. Correct. So, right. But not apologizing for that. And I think a lot of us as leaders need to figure out, right, what those guardrails are.
Which is resilience.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It is.
Yeah.
It's a small form, like you said, resilience isn't this like huge thing. It's those moments.
It is.
It is taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
What's something you wish you knew? I call it at base camp before the climb, right? Before this, that you wish someone had told you for the leaders that are listening.
Gosh, I wish that someone had told me it would be okay. I feel like I spent so much of my life trying to figure out how to make it okay, but I didn't know that there was ever going to be a destination in which I would be okay. And the reality is, spoiler alert, there's not a final destination, but there are these micro destinations of okayness. The things that I worried about last year are very much solved for and are okay today. The things I worried about 10 years ago, right? You could go back, and all of those things ended up being okay. They may not have worked out the way I wanted them to, right? But they worked out and I was okay. And continue to be okay. My family's okay, right? It's always worked out for my good. And knowing that is a constant state of being, again, not because it's going to work out always the way I want it to, right? Probably 50% of the time it does. The other 50% it doesn't work out the way I wanted it to, but I'm still okay.
Right.
I would have loved to know that.
I think part of that, right? There's a song, and people laugh at me, but there's a song I listen to, and I've had my kids listen to, "Wish You Pain" by Andy Grammer, and it's just the song isn't the point, but he's essentially writing it to his child, and it talks about, I hope somebody makes you cry, I hope somebody does all these things to you, because I hope it's not easy, and then it's all of a sudden hard, right? Like I hope there are hard things throughout that build that muscle. Because otherwise, right, we need those things. And I think, I don't think I know. It's the reason I have this podcast, is to bring people on and say, the hard things is what made me, right? Forged by fire, not by the ease of life.
Exactly right.
What's one message that you hope, or just one lesson that you hope somebody listening takes away from your story, right? What you've experienced. What do you hope to take away?
I hope that people can take away, I'm going to pull it together. I'm not going to give just one. The fact that resilience is possible. We can weather the storm. We can make it through. We can be okay. And once we realize that, we can find joy in the journey. It doesn't have to be something that we resist the resilience. We resist the storm. Sometimes we have to dance in the storm and recognize that this too shall pass. But while it's here, I'm going to find the glimmers. I'm going to find the glimmers of hope, of joy, and I'm going to live another day to share the stories.
And I think in a world that feels polarized, I think it's a beautiful reminder of you can be in the storm and find joy.
Correct.
At the same time.
Correct.
Right? Like, I think that's hard for, like, you can have hope that we will get through this and be in the middle of it at the same time. Yes. Mm-hmm. And right now, hope, I think, is what most of us as leaders need for ourselves, but our teams, our businesses also need it right now.
Yes.
That we will be okay.
That we will be okay. And I think teams and, businesses also need to know, and being okay doesn't necessarily mean it's all going to work out perfectly the way we run it. Right? But that it will work out.
Control. Mm-hmm. It's hope and faith.
Correct.
I think that's a big, because there's a lot we can't control.
There's a lot we can't control.
And I think a lot of our pain right now and our, burnout and is things we can't control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what we can control is it'll be okay. And we can't even forward.
Correct. And resilience is also knowing the difference between what's in my control and what's out of my control. And a lot of the fear and the stress and the anxiety comes from trying to control things that are uncontrollable. And so another resilience tool that I would give is asking the question in situations that feel overwhelming, stressful, or bringing anxiety to your life is the question of what can I control in this situation and what can I not control?
Right.
And then focusing only on what I can control.
My question similar to that is, what do I know to be true? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In this moment, right? What do I know to be true? Because I am a professional worrier and I can get in these spirals of like, I'd be embarrassed to even say out loud where my brain goes sometimes, right? On how bad it could get. And then I'm like, time out. I try to stop the swirl. Like, what do I know to be true? Mm-hmm. Right? Like sometimes you have to almost shake yourself out of that spiral. Mm-hmm. I know I'm not the only one that deals with this. So,
I deal with it all the time. I'm actually giving a talk on Thursday and I'm talking about the spiral and giving the tool of when you feel the spiral, tap yourself.
Yeah.
Because it reactivates your physical body.
That's such a great tip. Such a great tip. Okay. Mm-hmm. Before we get into the kind of the bonus round of fun questions, how can people connect with you, understand? You do so many different things. What's the best way for them to connect with you and follow and kind of, get inspiration from you and what you do?
He forgot I was recording a podcast, but also this goes back to the humanity of life. The humanity of life. That I work from home and my family just comes right in. It's so funny, but it also is something that 2 years ago would have absolutely threw me off. Right. And had we so upset. And today I laugh and
we're not editing anything. We're not editing anything.
No. My husband came in to bring now. How people can get a hold of me. So my company is called Legacy Rising. And it's all about living in our very real living legacy, right? And rising is because we're rising into it. It's not a destination that we're going to reach, but we're going to continue to live in our living legacy and rise to the best version of ourselves we can be. And so legacyrising.com is my website. There's ways to connect. I always love to have conversations with people and get to know people. There's ways to invite me to come and speak, ways to learn about my coaching business, my consulting business. And I love all of those pieces. The other thing that I'm going to share with you after this is I did put together a resilience toolkit, and would love to make that available to your listeners as well, because it's something I, for lots of reasons, felt the need to create, and probably originally created selfishly for myself. But now that I have it, it's something that I want to make available. It's back to those being a dot connector. And I think a lot of people could use more tools to support as we all work to resilience.
Thank you for sharing that, because it is. And again, some of the things, it might be like, I know that already, or I know, but we need to be reminded of some of these tools we already have, instead of thinking we've got to, we don't have it and we have to build it. So thank you for that. Okay, some fun questions. What's your go-to song when you need to reset your energy?
I'm Every Woman by Whitney Houston. I love, love, love it. I will put it on. I will dance around my office, and I will scream, sing from the top of my lungs, because I can't hit the notes she can. But if I'm screaming, I think I've hit them, and it motivates me.
What's a book or podcast that you go to, or that really has shifted your perspective? Like you remember when you heard it, or you listened, or you read it?
I love the Optimist podcast. And so for me, it's one of my resilience tools is anytime I'm consuming negative content, something that upsets my spirit, I have to offset with the same amount of time of something positive. So I'll listen to the Optimist podcast and the guests that come on and talk about the ways that they don't use these words, but decide to find joy.
Yeah, I love it. What's one thing you do consistently to manage your own energy? We talked about this a little bit. Like, what is the thing that no matter what the day, you will not, miss doing this or helping yourself with this?
Yeah. I started meditating, and it's something that I do with my youngest, and we do it together every single day.
Oh, you're totally building resilience in kids at a younger age. I love that so much. Okay, as part of being on this podcast, I'm going to give you a billboard on a main highway here. And you could put anything on it for the leaders in this community to read right now. What would you put on it?
Find joy. It's available. Even in the hard times, right? Like I would only say that on that because I'm a marketer and I know it needs to be short and succinct, but it's all about finding joy and deciding to find the joy. And even when things are really, really hard, it's so easy to see the negative. And I'm sure there's a lot of negative, especially when things were hard, but there are glimmers. There are glimmers, and we can choose to look for them and to find them.
Right. And which changes our day to day, which changes our own energy, which changes our interactions with our families and our team. And I think the strongest thing that you're saying here is just we're in control of how we feel. We're not in control of what things happen. We're in control of how we manage our own reaction, what we consume. That is a huge thing. So take back that control.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get to decide who to be around, what to consume, what to think. We get to decide all of those things. It's not because it's easy, but they are decisions we get to make.
They are decisions we get to make. So I think all of us, the message I'm hearing from you is like, take back that control and know you can choose that you can make a different choice. You can make a better choice in every moment.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful message. Thank you, my friend, for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
This is such a great just reminder and energy boost that I needed, and it's the whole purpose of the podcast. So thank you to those of you who are engaging in this new conversation that I'm so proud to be leading. So thank you for joining us and maybe gaining a little different view from the top.
Success isn't just about reaching the top. It's about what you discover once you're there. Here on View from the Top, we explore the stories, the setbacks, and the inner work that redefine what success really means. If this episode resonated with you, I'd encourage you to share it with someone who might need it right now. And to stay connected, make sure and subscribe so you get notified when we release new episodes. You can connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, or visit my website at jamietates.com. All of the links are in the show notes. Thank you for listening to View from the Top. We'll see you at the top and beyond.